Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You Can't Win. This is Tom here, and I'm joined by Donald as usual. Today, we're going to be kind of doing like a grab bag kind of an episode, talking about random things. Ramadan just started. We'll be talking a little bit about that. Donald has been watching a few movies that he wanted to discuss, and then we'll be getting into your questions as usual. So, yeah, how you doing, Donald?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't know. I feel like I'm settling into lockdown. I'm not sure. When are you opening up again? Like, did they start talking about that there at all? Do you know
they actually just extended it. It was supposed to be, so the stay-at-home order or shelter-in-place order, whatever they're calling it, was until the 30th of this month of April, and it has now been extended to the 30th of May. And as I said previously on another episode, they did shut down all the schools for the whole academic year, and they're doing like a gradual phase in of certain things. So even though they extended the lockdown for another month, they are allowing slightly more businesses to be declared essential and all that kind of thing. So, yeah. You know, it's we'll see. I don't know. They're also saying that we are hitting our peak and possibly, like, it seems like it's going to be an extended peak, like it's not just one day or something.
Sure,
like it's over a period of time, and so we are supposedly seeing that period now, and I don't know, we'll just see.
I think that's the same situation basically here. I think that they said that we're close to our peak, or maybe have already passed it a bit, and we've got like a conservative premier here who is a little bit like his sort of like nature is more like a Trump kind of guy. Like, he is a blustering kind of fool a lot of the time, but he seems really humbled by the situation right now. Like, he seems kind of he just overwhelmed basically almost. So he does his press conferences, and most of the time he's not like an idiot in them. He just kind of sounds really sad kind of thing. So it's actually like, it's not bad. I don't know. And but I feel like he is very much like the construction industry and all that are really huge, developers and that are huge supporters of him. And so I feel like a lot of things are going to open up pretty quickly as soon as they can. But it's funny though. It's very different than the States still, I think. Like, where in the United States, it seems like a lot of states are just going whole hog opening in the next month or so. Like, I saw a lot of places, their orders are lapsing on April 30th, and they're just basically letting them lapse kind of thing. So for a lot of them, so that's so, but I don't know. I feel like a part of that is probably because the federal government is just here is much more on board with things have to be shut down for the whole summer basically. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it is I don't know, it does feel good at some level that, things are, it seems like at the very least, like the more horrific scenarios seem to be limiting themselves a bit so far kind of thing, like, I mean, it's already been as you know what I mean? Like, it's not like we've got a bit of a grip on it now, I think, it seems like to me.
There's not just like bodies in the streets and mass graves and stuff. So. I mean, I don't know. There has been some worrying news though about the fact that the virus seems to be able to mutate much more than they had previously thought, and so a vaccine might be less effective than we were probably hoping for. And they're already kind of saying that there's going to be a second wave. It's going to be worse. I saw some graphs that were saying that we're not going to hit peak hospital capacity and all that on this first wave, but that the second wave will certainly get there if the predictions play out the way that they are modeling them. So, yeah, that's it's not over yet. Like,
no.
I think the whole wave thing is definitely a thing, and that it's, I don't know, the idea of like a vaccine just coming out next year and kind of reducing this to like a no big deal sort of thing, like the regular flu, is maybe not as likely as we were hoping.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I mean,
could be a perennial thing that this is something of a new normal now.
Yeah. I mean, especially with it looks like that if you get it, you can keep getting it kind of thing too. I've seen. So yeah, that's I don't know. I feel like I don't know. Like, it's just something that I don't know. Maybe it's just that I think that it's terrible, but it's one of those new. I don't know. It's like I don't know. Zizek always talks about this thing. He probably has made an article about this already that I haven't read yet, but he always talks about like general on the Eastern Front, like a Nazi general. Do you know about this? Or maybe it was, I'm not sure which side it was, but like,
No.
have you heard of this one or?
No, I don't think so.
So the general, so anyways, the basic idea is that the military unit took catastrophic losses, like just terrible, terrible losses. And then they reported back to their commander that, because they had survived, they said that the situation was catastrophic but not serious. and so it's like they could take, they took all these losses, but they were able to, sort of get through it and continue on to some extent. And anyways, I like that basic idea that, that's what it sort of feels like, where it's like you look at the news and you're like, oh, okay, well, thousands of people are dying, but looks like we got a handle on this or something like that kind of thing. I don't know. Like that's how it reads to my brain kind of thing. And then I'm like, I think also with, I don't know. And it kind of teaches me too, in some ways, that's how I feel like that's how a lot of the high level political people just feel about almost anything. Like if they see like a war or whatever, they're like, oh, okay, well, we took huge losses there, but chalk it up to experience. We'll move on. I don't know. So
there was like the Wells Fargo CEO or something like that. Maybe he was a ex Wells Fargo guy or something, but he was saying like, we should just send them back to work and some will die, but oh well, that kind of an attitude.
Sure.
So there's a kind of a positive way to swing that, where it's just like, this is the reality, we got to deal with it and move on, and we're still here, we're still ticking, so all is not lost. But there's the other side of that where it can kind of be like, it doesn't matter, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Although that was also sort of played into I don't know, I've seen a lot of debates recently online in different places where people are sort of like those protests that are happening, just the small ones about people that want everything to open up again, and like sort of the push by small business and stuff. And I don't know, I feel like I felt strange about it, because those protests are stupid. Like they just obviously are. But I do feel like a lot of the sort of discourse around it is getting very close to how it was 10 years ago. Yeah, as I said, like the Republicans sort of going nutty about like Obama and stuff, and then that didn't really work out in the favor of the more liberal side of things, kind of thing. It just sort of
for sure
turned into a cancer.
I think a lot of that is just to sort of set up the goalposts and stuff. So it's like we're going to debate about the fact that people are protesting against the lockdown. And so now there's like the reasonable positions are, well, maybe we do need to end the lockdown because, people are upset, they need to go back to work, That gives Republicans or whoever wants to open things up a lot of ammunition, and then it puts people who are like, well, no, we need this. Now all of a sudden there's like a heavy burden of proof on them when there's like a global pandemic. You can't just point to that anymore because you've accepted the idea of like, well, what we're discussing is lockdown protests and stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and I think that's why they're being sort of promoted and funded and stuff. I think that like,
I think a lot of them are fake.
Oh, they are all AstroTurf sort of things, I think. But although it is weird because we are kind of in this position now where a lot of things that sort of exist online and are promoted and then turn into these like real world protest movements or events and stuff, they get like a weird life of their own where they just sort of like they start as AstroTurf things, and then it's like they turn into little Frankensteins that just keep, or like zombies where they just keep on for years and years, and no one knows what, originally they were connected to something, but now there's no, I think Trump is obviously like almost the confluence of like 10 different things that were like that kind of thing, like with like the birther stuff and all that. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's just so many dumb people. I guess not to play into the Jon Stewart mentality here, but there's just always enough suckers, I guess.
Yeah, Yeah, and I don't know. It is one of those things where I mean I've watched a lot of spy movies lately, so this is part of the whole thing is that there is this sort of sense that it's like almost like a hierarchy where at the top is the spy agencies and secret societies and rich people and all that sort of thing, and it's like they think everyone else is stupid kind of thing, like that's just they're plodding along in their little dumb lives, and then they're the ones that are like thing, and then I mean it's hard to accept that it's all stupid all the way down kind of thing. It's
Right.
like I don't know, you know what I mean? Like everyone at every level is just some sort of dupe or something. I don't know. It's very depressing, but yeah. Yeah. How is Ramadan going otherwise for you? Like, is it?
Oh, it's been good. It's been really nice to sort of reconnect with. I don't know. I've been a little bit on the outs with practicing and just kind of being in that mode, and it's been really nice to reconnect with all that. The fasting has been really easy, to be honest. As I've said before, it's never been a huge struggle for me, just in terms of like the physical effort and stuff. I've never really had a big problem with the hunger and the thirst and all that, and it's been even easier this year, I think, because I don't know, maybe just because we're just sitting around the house all the time or something like that, or
Yeah.
I don't know, it just feels a lot easier physically. But it's been a little weird. It just has a little bit of a weird vibe, which is also strange because it's not really all that different. Like it's not like I was going to mosques every night or something. I never really got into all of that, so it's not so different. But it just has a different feeling around it. We always like to watch, like there's always a lot of like Ramadan content that different people put out, and they're all talking about how different it is, and there's just a different kind of feeling around it, which is, I don't know, a lot of it's very positive, to be honest. A lot of the imams and sheikhs and stuff are looking at this as like, this is a really unique, special Ramadan, and this is something that will be talked about in history books, and this is, you can really take advantage of this time more than in past Ramadan, so this can be your best Ramadan ever, that whole kind of attitude. So they're really like trying to see it as an opportunity and not play up the whole, like, because a lot of people are bummed out about the lack of like Taraweeh, which is like the nighttime prayers that people do, and all that kind of thing, like the communal aspect to it.
Sure. So is any of that generally obligatory? Like, is there gathering kind of requirements? Like, I know, like, say the Friday prayers or something like that. Is that generally like, are you supposed to do it in a group if you can, or?
So, like, do you mean Ramadan specifically, or just in general?
No, just any sort of general obligation to gathering or something like that.
Yeah. So the Friday Jummah is obligatory, and for men specifically, it's optional for women, and that during a time like this it's there's like an exemption for it, like,
sure,
and there's other things that can exempt that, like if it's just dangerous for any reason, basically it's fine to stay home. And in fact, it's obligatory to stay home, and it's prohibited to go to the mosque if it's dangerous to do that.
What about like some sort of the different meals and things? Like, is there any sort of like Eid, or like the sort of the breaking of fast together? Like, is that just like a deep tradition, or is there any sort of responsibility to do something like that, or is that just like cultural?
It's primarily a cultural thing. There is specific reference to, so suhoor is like the breakfast that you eat before sunrise, and iftar is the meal that you would eat to break your fast. And there's definitely reference to those meals, but there's no specific food or nothing really specific about what you need to eat or how you need to eat that or anything like that. There are a few very minor things about like what's preferable in terms of like, do you, like when you break your fast, you do that at a certain prayer time. So is it preferable to pray first and then break the fast? And what I've understood is that you break the fast with a little bit of like water or milk and dates. That's the sunnah. That's what the Prophet used to break his fast with. So you do that, then you pray, and then you go have iftar, which is like the larger meal. So that's the preferred thing, but it's totally, you know, you don't have to do that. That's not any obligatory at all. And then there's the Tarawih prayers, which are not obligatory. They were actually something that was developed after the Prophet's life, under Omar, I believe. And they are something that's highly encouraged, and it's something that people really get into. It's like a big part of Ramadan for most people, but they're not technically obligatory at all. It's just a tradition that's been established, and it's considered just a good thing because so it's every night during Ramadan, and generally the way it goes is that the imam will get through the whole Quran in that period of the month. So it's just a way to go through the whole Quran, right? Through the month. The month of Ramadan is the month when the Quran was revealed. So it's just a way to kind of like get everyone involved in that and that kind of thing. So
how are you finding the sleeping? Like getting up early and all that sort of thing, and then going like, are you doing anything? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm getting it's around 4:30 that I need to stop eating and drinking and stuff. So I'm waking up at like 4:15 and find it pretty easy to go back to sleep, and I haven't been feeling tired or anything like that. And again, I think a lot of it is because it's pretty easy living in the sense that I'm not going to work. I don't have to like get up and go anywhere. I'm just staying home and stuff. So
sure.
Really
yeah, although I was worried that might be the opposite, though. I thought that, it might be because, we've been talking about how it's been different now with a lot of people finding it hard to be in a schedule and all that.
Right.
I've had insomnia and stuff. I feel like I could see you maybe playing Civ 6 or something until late and then, having difficulty
yeah, I mean, it's funny, this, I always kind of get myself in order a little bit and get a little more disciplined about things like that during Ramadan. It's just something that, I mean, part of it is that I am trying to be like my best self, and all that kind of thing. But I think another part of it is I just know that it's a lot more comfortable if you just kind of get into the routine and you don't mess around, you don't stay up late playing computer games or whatever. If you I mean, I'm not going to bed super early, but earlier than I was and all that. So it's funny how it makes it a lot easier when you have this sort of like structure to kind of not force you to do it, but it really incentivizes you to like make the right choices and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a little bit concerned about it too, but it's been pretty easy so far. Usually it's like the first 3 days are like the hardest of getting into the routine, and once that those first few days are gone, you kind of get adjusted to it and your appetite sort of changes. You don't really expect to be eating, and I think your body somehow like adapts to the situation. You just know that food comes later, and you don't really feel it as harshly.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a bit more than normal in terms of it's funny because it's almost been good for my health, not Ramadan, but like the lockdown, in terms of going for walks and long walks around the neighborhood and stuff. And I mean, not great for cooking still, but still doing more than normal on a lot of that now. And watching more movies and watching and reading more books and stuff. And I mean, I just finished a book. It's funny. I was sort of reflecting on it that like I bought this book when I was in Montreal in 2003. It was it's like a Economist Guide to Financial Markets.
Man, that's before I graduated high school. That was a long time ago.
So I had like actually it was kind of funny. What happened was I was living in Kingston, and then I had a summer. They had this like thing where you can go to Montreal for 6 weeks, and the government basically pays it for you. They give you housing and at like a residence, and then you can take it's like a first year university course compressed into 1 week into 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something like that. And it's first year French and whatever. So it's like, it's not like it is a real course, but it's also like that's all you're doing. So it's just like a way to have fun in a different city and have the government pay for it kind of thing,
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
And to encourage bilingualism and stuff. And I'd always wanted to, like, I think I had been to Montreal once before, but this was like, I really wanted to like hang out in the city and stuff. So it worked out really well. And it was also funny because I had no money at all. Like just like, like totally broke, just completely broke. And then the first day that I got there, they were like, they had little envelopes for us, and they were like, okay, so your first $200 you'll get now, and then you get the rest of like your $600 or whatever. It was like $1,000 or something they give you in cash as like a subsidy kind of thing or something. And I was like, I had no idea it was coming, and
That's nice.
I was like, oh man. This is like, I felt like I like won the lottery or something. I was like, I get a free vacation and I get paid to be here. I don't know. I was so happy. And especially because I was like so like not depressed, but I was kind of like, I think I only had like $100 for like of my own money for like the, month and a half or something like that. And I was kind of like, well, I'll get groceries and then, like I was kind of like, trying to budget it out. And then I got a windfall and I was like, oh man, this is great. Anyways, one of the things I bought with the money, one was, that Caro, one of the biographies of Lyndon Johnson. And then the other one was this Guide to Financial Markets, which ends up just basically being like, it's almost like an encyclopedia, but it's only like 250 pages or something. But it's funny because I kept starting it and never finishing it like every few years. And I just finally finished it for the first time, and it's kind of, I don't know, it took a while, I guess 17 years to actually get through it, but it's okay. It's not like, it's basically almost like a collection of Wikipedia articles about finance. So it's not even like, I don't know, but I got through it. So I was happy about that. So yeah.
That's good. Was it worth the wait?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because all it is basically is like, this is how a certain type of bond works. The bond has this. The bond has, it has a coupon rate. It has whatever, and it just talks about all the different ones. It's also kind of funny because it was written in 2003, so the financial crisis hadn't happened yet. So a lot of the things that it pointed towards in the book, had not. They were like recent phenomena that had not yet turned into disasters. So it has like a whole section on mortgage-backed securities and different types of derivatives and stuff. And it does sort of warn about them a bit and different things. Like it's like ideological, obviously, because it's like written by it's for like the Economist or Financial Times or something. But like, it did have a lot of like things in it where it's like, I don't know. You can kind of go, oh, that's not going to work out well for them, kind of thing. Something, yeah. So, I don't know. I'm trying to get through more of these books about finance and stuff. Just trying to read and like economics and stuff. Just keep, plugging along on it and stuff. And I feel like if I keep doing that in a few years, I'll be more competent about that kind of stuff in terms of business journalism and everything. So, I don't know. So we'll see.
That's good. I have not been in a reading mood at all.
Yeah.
I've just not been reading.
Yeah. Have you been playing that Civ 6 more or anything like that? Or?
I have been playing more of Magic Arena. They just had a new set of cards come out, so I've been drafting a lot on there and doing very well, which sort of like incentivizes me to keep playing more.
Yeah.
Because when you do very well, they call it going infinite. You get your like the in-game currency that you pay, you get that much back plus some more. So you basically get like another free draft to go in for. So I'm just like stacking up digital packs of cards and stuff. And so I'm trying to limit that though during Ramadan. I'm trying to really like only do like one of those a day, if that.
So is it like competitive in the way that, like I know it seems like a lot of them are like Modern Warfare I see in all these different ones. It seems like there's like, I don't know, like rankings and stuff, or like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like
yeah.
It's like
they have a ranked system, and if you like, you really have to grind a lot to get into the highest tier, and a certain part of the top tier of that tier like get to go to a tournament. It used to be an in-person tournament. I don't know what they're going to do now. But like there are professional Magic players, and that's how they make money. They play for tournament winnings and stuff. And like there was one guy last year that won the biggest ever, and I think it was like $1 million or something. Like it's getting to like significant levels of money now. I know a lot of these guys used to do poker to make their money, and Magic was like their fun thing to do. And now Magic actually pays out. But I don't know. I don't really do that. I just play for fun. You know, I don't even put in any money. I just play enough to get the in-game currency and then use that to draft, and that gives you cards. And so I just kind of like try to sustain a decent amount of cards that way.
Yeah, I've been playing that Skyrim more, and it's funny because at the first for the first maybe few hours, whatever total that I played it, I was like I didn't like, I kind of disliked it, but not like that bad. Like I just had no idea what was going on. There were just like lots of different strange words being bombarded at you, right. And it doesn't really make any sense to me. And I'm not usually like a fantasy sort of epic person. I just never really got into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And but I don't know. I think and even then, like the combat and stuff is sort of annoying to me. I don't really care about this style of combat. I'd rather play something like Modern Warfare or whatever for that kind of thing. But I don't know, once I was able to start collecting spells and stuff and leveling up on that, I was like, okay, I'm in this now. I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm committed. I don't know. So I was like I'm like level 12 now, I think, or something. So yeah, I don't know.
Cool. I saw some interesting stuff from a Skyrim mod today. There's it's a modding team. They're called Beyond Skyrim. And what they're doing is they're taking all of the different areas that have been in previous Elder Scrolls games. So Morrowind, Oblivion, all the DLC, and they're putting it all in the Skyrim engine and making it so it's one contiguous world that you can travel to all these different continents.
Oh, and, really? Yeah.
Yeah, they're plugging along. They were sort of showing their progress, and it's looking pretty cool. I'm really kind of interested in playing the in the world where it's like the Khajiit, the cat people.
Yeah.
And they have they live in like a desert area, and their architecture looks pretty like Islamic-y, and I don't know, that seems kind of fun. When I was kind of like, all right, whatever, just sort of seeing it. And then when they showed that part, I was like, oh man, I could get into that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I don't know when exactly it'll come out. It's probably still a couple years out at least, but yeah, it's looking good.
I was thinking that I had thought that they would already, I thought that was already sort of the existence in this one kind of thing. Like I thought because there's a lot of like old ruins and stuff, and I assumed that like in earlier games those were the ruins, but I guess they're just random ruins or something. So,
well, yeah, I mean, not to go too deep into it, but yeah, there is some relation between those and some of the previous games. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That seems. And then another thing I did is I finally watched the sort of last Bourne movie that I finished it
right.
Bourne Ultimatum, and it was funny because I'm sure I saw it. Like I'm sure I saw. So the Bourne Identity, the first one, I remembered a good amount of it. Like I remembered, I probably saw it again like maybe 10 years ago or something. So I had some memory of it and stuff. The Bourne Ultimatum came out in 2007. I had no memory of it like whatsoever. I had like no. It was completely new to me and stuff, and that felt. I guess it was just not memorable, maybe, but like. I don't know. It felt strange. I was like, I have seen this, right? I don't know. So I don't know, because that was the last time that I used to see a lot of movies was in 2007 to 2009. That was like what I would do is there was like a theater near my house kind of thing, and I would go see two. Like I would go see one and then walk into another one, and I would time it kind of thing. Like I would look at, I would go pay for one. I don't know why I would even, and then go, watch it, and then I would go see another one afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw like so many movies that way, and the type of theater it was they had like all the new ones and stuff, but then they had a lot of like foreign movies and stuff, a lot of like like the ones that just basically to fill the screens because it was like a big old sort of theater kind of thing. And so I saw like, probably dozens and dozens of movies that way because it was very cheap for me to see a bunch of them at once. I mean, I think I went maybe once or twice. I saw 3 in a row, and that was like almost just because I wanted to see if I could do it because the movies were not good that I saw. So I don't know, but yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I also saw 2 yesterday. I saw 2 great movies that I thought I would just kind of mention. Is that I really liked. Have you seen Ad Astra? That one with Brad Pitt, whatever.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I liked it. It's like, you've heard of it at all, or it's like
I've heard the title, but it seemed, I just hate the title so much. I just didn't look into it any further.
Yeah. Well, what I liked about it was that it's set sort of like in the near future where they are doing like space missions and stuff, and it's like sort of like Earth is sort of humanity is sort of graduated a bit to like there is space travel basically, like, but okay. It's basically only in our solar system, and it's only, there's like moon colonies, and it's sort of like a little bit silly about that kind of stuff. It's like it's a lot of it is about like mining and resources, but instead of like foregrounding that, that's just a thing that happens in the background mostly.
That's cool.
And it's also kind of neat because they film, like you go to the moon or whatever, right? And on the moon, it just looks like a normal airport, basically. It's got like a subway and DHL and all that kind of stuff, right? So I thought that was kind of cool too because, it's just, they kind of comment on it a bit. It's kind of like we went to other places but just turned it into Earth again kind of thing. So sure. I thought that was kind of neat because, I don't know, I could see that being done very badly, very easily, and I thought it was sort of fun. And I don't know, it just has some, I kept thinking of it almost as like an anti-Bergman film, like Ingmar Bergman, whatever, like
oh right,
and because there is a lot of it about like being alone in the universe and all that sort of thing is like part of it, and it's part of it is that like humanity is very invested in this idea of now we'll be able to actually like find out if there's other aliens and stuff like that's, I don't know. So I thought that was kind of a nice theme, and they have like in it like stuff like ever so often people in it pray or say something about God or something, which I thought was neat because, again, most science fiction stuff doesn't really touch that at all.
Right, yeah.
And so, like, at every sort of stage of the movie, someone will say a prayer or say something related to religion. And that seemed very much like, again, one of those things where, yeah, I feel like a lot of sci-fi stuff doesn't include very basic things like that, so...
Yeah, a lot of sci-fi kind of has this premise of like atheism will rational thought and atheism will have been achieved and everyone will be free from all the old ways of thinking or whatever and that kind of thing. And instead of like I mean, I haven't seen this, but it sounds like the idea of space exploration and stuff will maybe make that even more relevant rather than less relevant.
Yeah, and I mean, there's different ways to take the film because of the way it ends and stuff, but like, I do think that there's a way. I assume that I would have guessed that a big, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume that like a big Hollywood film has a sort of like a atheistic angle. Like it's not, you're not going to have like, I don't know, like I thought. One thing I thought was interesting is that like so a previous movie like this in some respects was like Contact. And it had the same sort of themes about like looking for extraterrestrial life and all that. And in book Contact, I don't remember the movie as much, but I know that the sort of angle on it was that the actual contact was with like God. That's like the, I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of remember that in the movie too. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's this, that written into the code of the universe basically is a religious thing. Now. So Ad Astra itself, like I feel like you can look at it in a way that like is religious, and I thought that would be, I feel like if you can look at something the way that you want to look at it, then you just might as well do that. You don't have to like,
yeah,
you don't have to sort of bend to, just whatever they, but I think it's more, I think that my guess is that the director is more interested in saying that like atheism doesn't need to lead to nihilism.
Mm.
But I feel like you don't even have to do that. You can just say that religion survives science in some ways. So yeah, that's how I would put it. But anyway, so I don't know. I would suggest, yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. If where did you watch it?
So I rented it. Okay.
Because, all
it's
right.
not
Well,
out yet,
I'll keep
but-
an eye out for it.
yeah.
The old
So-
notebooks.
Yeah, and the other one that I watched was that I liked more. I thought this was just like I can understand why someone wouldn't like it, but I really loved it. Was a Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
I haven't even heard of that.
Yeah, so it's like a French movie that came out last year, I guess.
Okay.
And it's about a woman who is sent to basically a small French community I think it's set in the 17th century.
Mm.
She's supposed to paint a woman who is being sent off for marriage. And, she has to kind of like, but she doesn't, the trick is that the woman doesn't like being painted, so that, she has to like basically do it in secret.
Okay.
Like she has to sort of like hang out with her and just kind of like stare at her.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
And
yeah.
then,
and then paint later from memory, kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's how it kind of starts off. And then they end up having like a relationship. And I just really liked it. I just thought it was well done how they did it and stuff. And it's like the sort of the basic angle on it is that the question is, whether or not love is something that is, it's whether you're actually aiming at the love or if you're aiming at the memory of love or something like that kind of thing. So
Sure.
I don't know. I really liked that sort of theme and stuff. I thought it was really interesting, and I don't know. I thought it was well done, so it was fun. But yeah, it's a very gay movie though. But I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. So I like that sort of. I might want to watch. Like, have you ever seen Babette's Feast or anything like that? Or
Mm-mm. I'm not a big movie guy,
Oh, okay, yeah. So anyway, so I want to start watching some of this old European stuff, like the old time Europe, 17th century, 18th century sort of stuff. I don't know. I thought that'd be fun to watch more of that stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, sure. I like Andrei Rublev, if you've seen that.
Yeah. I've seen parts of that. I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but I think that that sort of thing is the sort of thing I'd want to watch more of, but also just like daily life sort of thing.
Right.
Just
yeah.
So, anyways, that's what I've been up to lately, is that kind of thing. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I guess we could move into the questions at this point.
Sure.
So let's see. Is Mario a veteran? I don't know. I don't really know my Mario lore. I thought he was a plumber, and I didn't think it went much further than that.
Yeah. Oh, I guess because they're saying he fought these Koopas and all that kind of thing. Maybe. Like,
Yeah,
is that
maybe?
does that count as a veteran? I guess, yeah, I was going to say he wasn't uniformed, but he kind of was. And then he's also like, I'm sure that Princess Peach, whatever, maybe gave him some sort of commendation or something. So I guess that he would count as that. I don't know if they would like accept him at like a veterans hall as like a real veteran because, well, they might not believe him to start with. They might be like, well, you probably didn't like kill turtle-like creatures and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever played like Nintendo games, like that kind of stuff? Like, have you ever gotten into that?
Yeah, a little bit
like
when I was younger, but I'm not. That's not my thing. The platformers
Sure.
and all that kind of stuff.
What about Switch? Have you ever thought about getting one of those? Or
No, I don't even really know exactly what a Switch is in terms of like what makes it special or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny because a bunch of people that I know online. Well, first off, it's like for some reason it's like catnip for girls right now. For some reason, it's just like like they're in Animal Crossing. It's just like it become a huge thing where they just play that all day now. And I was kind of like, and it looks fun. Like it's not like I'm not like against it or anything, but I'm just amazed at like Nintendo's marketing because I've seen like probably at least a dozen people that I know online have bought one in the last few months, whatever. Even though it's like three-year-old system or something, right? So I used to really like Nintendo as a kid. I used to subscribe to Nintendo Power.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. And I don't know. I thought that would be, I don't know, but I feel like that's one thing where if I got one, I would never play it at all. I don't know. I'd probably like play it for like a minute and then be like, nah, I don't know. So.
Yeah, I could see if they have like a good baseball game on there or something, but I don't
No.
think they've really been making a lot of good baseball games for a long time. I don't know.
Well, are you thinking about getting a PS5 when they come out, or do you think, or you don't know?
Probably not. I don't know.
Okay.
We only really use it to watch stuff, like Netflix
really?
and
Yeah.
YouTube and stuff. We don't really play games on there as much.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see. When Cyberpunk comes out, I'm maybe considering getting it on the console because like Tabs likes to watch me play those kinds of games, and it's a lot easier to do that on the console that's out in the living room rather than on my computer and stuff.
Yeah.
But my computer would probably run it a lot better, so I'm sort of like, and it's first person, and I really hate playing first person stuff on console. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of like weighing my options there. Probably gonna go with the computer though.
I'm really surprised at like the prices of everything. I don't know. Still, like on video games, I really like. I've spent over the last year now a lot on things like I got the console for PS4 and all that kind of stuff. But even then, like I look at like the Switch and I go, like in Canadian prices, like a new Switch, like the actual base unit, normal sort of console, is like $400, and then the special Pro controller is like $90 or whatever, and then the Animal Crossing is like $80, whatever. And
Whoa.
stuff. It's just, I don't know. So I feel like, I don't know. It seems like a big commitment or something. I don't know. To me, it's like you'd really have to want to jump into that, whatever. So
Yeah, that's a pretty big obstacle for me. I'm not gonna take my chances on something that I may not even like.
Sure.
All right. Next question here is for you, Don. Can you recommend a good book on Islam?
Oh, so they want me to?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of like I was trying to think of like a book about the Crusades as a joke, but and
I know a great book on the Crusades from the Arab perspective. It's called The Crusades Through Arab Eyes. It's almost entirely first-person accounts, like from primary sources and stuff. Some very funny stuff, some very interesting stuff. And yeah, I would recommend that to anyone who's interested in something like that.
I did see a book that I haven't bought yet, but it looked kind of interesting, which is it's like a catalog of apologetics and sort of opinions and stuff about different world religions. It's basically like a textbook, I think, for priests or something, and it's like it tries to be like charitable, I think, too. It's not like just a because 99% of those books now are just probably terrible because they're just like Islam is like a terror religion or whatever kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like I think that a lot of that stuff is just like that. But I saw one that looks interesting because it looks like it's more like, here are our points in common. Here are things that we agree on. Here's things that we disagree on and ways to resolve them in a polite way or whatever. It's like it seemed a lot more charitable. And I don't know. That's the sort of thing that I would probably enjoy more because I don't know. I think that's useful, even for things that like I have, just a historical sort of inherited. I just don't, prejudice kind of thing where like it's like Hinduism or something. I just can't relate to it. Just as a religion,
sure.
I find it hard to. I mean, it's good to sort of read about stuff like that and kind of come away with more of appreciation and maybe make less flippant jokes about it, like. the Crusades joke and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. So yeah,
I think you're fine. I don't know.
No. But you know what I mean, though. That like it's like there's, I don't know. I'm sure you do encounter that a lot online where people make like the instant sort of jokes and think that they're chumming around kind of thing, and then you're like, okay, come on, kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty whatever about it. You know what I mean? It doesn't bother me too much.
Sure.
I know what you mean about like just not being able to like click with the religion or whatever. Like it's just something there. I've always felt that way about Christianity. Like I can really appreciate a lot of the like the ethics and just like the way that it's manifested in the real world, like people, you know, how good Christians can be, you know what I mean? But when it comes down to like the actual theology and the way that the religion works as a religion, it just doesn't work for me for some reason. And
sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably a big part of that is just the fact that Islam is what really worked for me as in terms of like, it just made sense. And so anything that sort of differs, it's going to be, it's not going to feel right, you know? So I think it's just one of those things.
Sure.
Okay, so here's another question for you. What is Don's take on Andropov? There was an article by a UVA professor circulating on Twitter suggesting if he hung on a little bit longer, the Soviet Union would have held together. He was purging old Stalinists and considering China-like economic reform. One of the more interesting tanky takes. Putin is a fan.
Yeah, Andropov, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about Russian history in that sort of, you know, mode to actually say much about it other than, you know, I do think it's true that there's probably a lot of different options that would have been available to people at that time. I think a lot of it did come down to Gorbachev's personality and stuff, but part of it is that you can't really, like the Soviet system was almost like, it was very, very intimately connected to other parts of the world and other problems kind of thing. Like China's a bit different because it's like this giant thing that was completely closed almost for like a few years and stuff. And like, you know, so it had such control that it was easier for it to sort of, you know, privatize sections of its economy and all that sort of thing. I think for the Soviet Union, you got to think that like in the 80s, a lot of countries across the across the Warsaw Pact were already starting to liberalize their economies in like a lot of ways, like pretty extensively, that it would have continued on for a while, and that would have made it really easy, I think, eventually to, like, there's nothing necessary why, but I feel like Soviet control of the Warsaw Pact would have collapsed anyways, you know, like eventually. Mm-hmm. And because of that, then it matters less what the actual Soviet Union was doing, because Soviet was always just was perceived as a threat because of its extension in other countries, basically, right? Like the Soviet Union itself, if it didn't have a sphere, it didn't really matter what it was happening to it itself, kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. Mark Ames was saying the other day, heard him talking about how, you know, there was this sort of other path that people talk about sometimes about possibly them liberalizing their economy in certain sectors, but not just doing the fire sale, which might have worked in some ways, kind of thing. And
yeah,
I feel like anything like that is just well, at some level, it's kind of futile to talk about because, you know, it didn't happen. So it's like, you know, that's part of it. Yeah. I don't know. I always kind of, yeah. So I find it hard to sort of go through these sort of things, but I do think that there's something to the idea that a slower sort of reformist sort of process towards opening up or something might have been more effective if it could have happened. But, you know, I don't know. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also not a fan of like what if kinds of questions, but I thought that one was a little bit more interesting because it's more like, do you think this approach would have been more effective or something, which is a little bit different than just like, what if this happened, you know?
Sure. Well, I mean, part of it, like to answer it in one way, is that George Soros So a book that I would really recommend, or two of them that I would really recommend, is that there's sort of like I think it's called something like The Destruction of the Soviet System. I can put it in the notes. And what it is that they went through. There's two of them. One of them was basically in 1991 or something, and one came out I think maybe 5 or 10 years later. And what it does is it's different people that were involved in the sort of final years of the Soviet Union, going through all the different economic options that were at play. And it's like Western people, or like people like George Soros himself kind of thing, like talking about like his plans and stuff. And or maybe not George Soros, but like one of his close people or something. I can't remember. But like what I thought was really interesting was that it talks about how, so the Soros Foundation or something was planning this idea that they went in there and kind of pitched them. They were going to pitch them on the idea that cities would create like free trade zones, maybe in like St. Petersburg or something, and it would be sort of similar to what ended up happening in China, with like a sort of a market zone. And then the idea was that that market zone would be so prosperous, they thought naturally, that that would force policymakers to sort of slowly reform the system in the 80s, Soviet Union kind of thing. And he said that what astonished them was that events outstripped them, basically. That, by the time that they had actually put together all these ideas, the Soviet Union was sort of like already in sort of full market reform collapse kind of thing, right? So it happened so quickly. So I think it's true that, there's no necessary reason. It's the same thing with the military side of it. That's probably the largest policy area where it would make sense to talk about that kind of thing, where it's like, if Andropov had not, if he had de-escalated in Afghanistan quicker or something, those kind of things, or if he had, reduced military spending, they call it a conversion, I guess, changing the economy from a more military-based one to a thing. But, it's one of those things where that's not the way they were thinking. They were thinking that, they don't want to be the leadership of a generation that loses another, like, not loses another war, but like World War II was not perceived as like a great victory amongst the elites of the Soviet Union, like internal to itself, right? Like they thought of it as, we almost got destroyed and we lost all this life, and it was hugely embarrassing to the government that they were even allowed to, that they had almost gotten defeated, basically. So that's one of the reasons why they overinvested in things like tanks and all this kind of stuff afterwards, because they were like, we're never going to again get into a position where we could lose, kind of thing. So, yeah. So they actually, the number of tanks that they had compared to the sort of scale of the threat that they perceived was just like extreme. Like it was like paranoid, almost, like the level of military spending and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, that actually, a lot of things there remind me of North Korea today. Like the free market zone is something that I think they have tried recently. The, obviously the militarism and the paranoia and all that kind of stuff. You have any thoughts on the potential of the Kim Jong-un having died and the sister taking over and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's very strange because every few years they do a full rollout in Korea since like Kim Jong-il was around, and they would do like a full sort of rollout and invite factories in and stuff in China and South Korea. Like South Korea, they had like a big like tourism sort of thing where South Koreans could come up to this sort of mountain village or something kind of thing, and like and so every few years they have that sort of thing, and then also internally they have like markets start to sort of spring up, just sort of, I wouldn't say naturally, because you don't ever want to say like naturalize it in that sense, but like, it's sort of spontaneous that if they let people sell sort of imported Chinese goods or something, then that will,
Sure.
they start to lay them out on the ground and people come by and buy them and stuff. And,
right.
So I think that exists ever so often, and then what happens is it gets cracked down on pretty tightly for a few years, especially because sometimes what ends up happening is that will be associated with particular figures kind of thing, like because it might be a racket in some way kind of thing, right? And then that person gets arrested for corruption, and then they shut that down. And there's a lot of problems with like their financial system related to that and that. So I think that's it's hard to guess, because every time that in the past where it looked like that kind of boom was happening, they then cut back on it a lot because of, whatever reason. But it is one of those things where, it's hard because China's economy is not doing well right now at all. And really the benefit to the region of North Korea being open is it's like a labor supply of like almost like a third-rate Chinese economy kind of thing, like a colony almost kind of thing, right? Like it's like a way of it's like, places like the Northeast that are already, a lot of the places in it are now poor compared to coastal China. It's like a third tier that they can then use as like cheap labor for certain things, but there's also so much political risk that it doesn't make sense for people to do that unless there's like some sort of guarantee that things will work out. So anyways, I think that's but at the same time, I do think there are a lot of potential there for, I wouldn't say for actual prosperity, but more for
like improvement,
normalization at some level, so that people can, already they're already probably watching, like Korean shows and all that kind of stuff on like the people that can afford it, like USB sticks or something like that, get imported, and then they just watch on that. May probably, but actual like I don't know. It's hard because you don't. It's not like their lives. I mean, a lot of people's lives are going to be good if they open up, whatever. It's just that it'd just be more like it is other places or something. So yeah, which is maybe its own goal, but like, yeah. So
yeah, and I don't know. That might be better. Hard to say. I mean, we just don't really know enough about what it's really like in there. Yeah, it's probably pretty bad, but who's to really say?
I do think that one gain that, I think both you and I from the last 10 years or so of our lives is that we do have more of respect for, we do have a bit of a respect for different systems just kind of continuing on in their own ways if they want to. Kind of like that was one of the things that in East Germany was like a sort of a subculture of some people, just first, like there was sort of a thing within the broader population, but it was also, an elite thing that they said, okay, well, let's have a democratic socialist Germany and not reunite with Western Germany. And it doesn't have to be the communist system that we have. It can be something new and different and continue on our own way instead of just getting completely absorbed into this model that we don't like or something like that.
Yeah, maybe a national socialism.
But, I respect something like that sometimes. Like, I think that's interesting to me, that like the idea that, I don't know, I like the idea of sort of pluralism between different countries, that we don't all have to have the same kind of system and stuff. And I think that's
I think you're right. That is something that like, doing our little like self-studies and stuff, that is definitely one thing that I appreciate that I've been able to gain from that, is just not seeing things in terms of, oh, they're doing it wrong, we're doing it right, or the reverse. Some people have the opposite, where it's like everything we do is wrong and everything this other place far away is doing is correct. It's just like people are doing things differently for different reasons, and you just want to see the best for everybody, whatever that means. And it's going to be different. It's never going to be the same for everybody. So you can't really apply like one solution to everything.
Sure.
Okay, next question here. Any Flannery O'Connor thoughts? I read Flannery O'Connor in high school, and I very much enjoyed it. We had to read a few stories for class, and then I liked it so much that I went on and read the entire collection that the stories were assigned from. I don't have a lot to say beyond that, to be honest. I just really like her writing.
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't read anything by Flannery O'Connor, and I don't know. I think that's funny because normally would probably be the opposite. That the Catholic person would have read through them. But I've read like sort of another one. Another author that people bring up in sort of the same time sometimes is Graham Greene. I really liked a lot of his novels a few years ago when I read them, like 10 years ago or something. I read a lot of them, like The Power and the Glory, and The Comedians, and Our Man in Havana, and all those ones. And I don't know, I really like them. But at the same time, I haven't read a lot of fiction, so I don't know how much my opinion counts on that. But I really did like, another one that people bring up is Evelyn Waugh, I guess, like a Brideshead Revisited, I guess, is one of them. Is that
right?
Waugh?
Yeah, I haven't read it, but yeah.
So I started reading that, and it's good so far. So yeah,
cool. Yeah, if you want to, the stories that come to mind for Flannery or O'Connor that I remember really liking are The River and A Good Man Is Hard to Find. I think that's the name of it. So, yeah, just suggestions there. What's your favorite movie of 2019? I don't remember seeing a lot of movies in 2019. I think did what was it called? The Pizzagate movie, You Were Never Really There, or whatever. Was that 2019? I'll say that one.
I'm looking at my I think that was a year earlier or something, but I'm looking at my letterbox for the 2019 movies. Yeah, I don't know. I really liked that Portrait of a Lady on Fire, as I said, that I just watched, and Uncut Gems was pretty good.
Oh, I haven't seen that
yet. Ad Astra was pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. I really like Joker. I thought that was pretty fun. I don't know. The thing that I liked about Joker was that I didn't really understand. I mean, I didn't guess what was coming next the whole time, kind of thing. Like I was actually like enthralled in it.
That's always good.
Yeah, I felt like a lot of those kind of things, like you kind of have to, I don't know, like I have to give them some credit for that, because I thought it was not going to be good. And it was okay. The movie Us, Jordan Peele, I guess. I thought that was good too. I don't know.
I heard that was really bad.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it because I was actually like, again, it was one of those things where I was, I don't know. I thought it was really cheesy, but I still really enjoyed it. I haven't seen a lot of horror movies in general, but I really enjoyed that. I don't know. I like The Irishman as well, I guess.
Oh yeah, The Irishman. Okay, I think I'll say that was my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of other ones. I mean, I've been kind of lucky in the last year that a lot of the ones that I've seen I really liked. Like just some of the ones I didn't like, I noticed was Long Shot came out then, which was Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron, and it was not good, but it was kind of funny because he's like a Vice or Jacobin kind of reporter guy, and that's like it's funny. It was funny seeing someone that I could follow online in a movie. I don't know, like I was like, oh yeah, that's someone that I would know, although I don't feel like he would I guess that's the movie that he would achieve at that level. And the other one that I sort of did not like was Men in Black International, although I signed up for that, so I guess that's my fault.
All right, next question. Okay, so next question here is, we have a lot of great problematic racist and no growth candidates in this year's contest, but in the end there can only be one. Who are you guys voting for DSA president? So I think I'm going to cast my vote for the incumbent Nick Mullen. He's been doing a great job over there, and I think we can only see more great work from him in the future.
Yeah, I think that Nick Mullen's done a good job. I think that he's backing Trump 2020, so I think that's interesting. I don't know. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was part of this coalition called Brand New Congress, And in that coalition, they said that they were going to support candidates that for primaries for things like that supported Medicare for all. And one of the things that they were doing was endorsing Republicans in primaries, where the Republicans committed to Medicare for all. This is true. And
Okay.
I thought that was a very strange use of their resources and sort of, whatever. So there's tweets by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez you can find where she's encouraging people to vote in Republican primaries for Medicare for all candidates. And I feel like Nick Mullen can sort of bring that to the next level and get, DSA behind Trump 2020. And
Hell yeah.
And then I think that will work out for everyone's favorite in the end.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, this one is for me. What are good videos or podcasts about the Quran or other Islamic teachings to introduce it to an English speaker? Videos of preachers or whatever. Also, maybe Ask Tom, please. Thanks. So I think there's a few good people who just are like any of their content is pretty good. Hamza Yusuf is definitely like the standard go-to guy, I would say. He has been producing stuff for decades that's really great. Lately, he is much more of like a subdued and kind of like calm sort of a guy and very much in touch with like an interfaith sort of a thing. In the 90s, he was much more of like a firebrand and stuff. You can find some really funny lectures he was given about like the New World Order and all this kind of stuff. But I think the best one of his as an introduction would be a lecture course that he did for, I think it was Islam on Demand or something like that. And you can find it on YouTube if you look this up. I think it's called, I think it's based on the book Vision of Islam. That's good. And he did one that was just based on the biography of the Prophet by Martin Lings. So he does like a run through of that. I think it's important to get a some sort of source for a biography on the Prophet in addition to just like basic theological stuff and things like that. It really puts a lot of things in place because so much of Islam is about the Sunnah, and the Sunnah is based on the Prophet's life, and the way that it's derived is based on like specific moments and things like that. So it's just important to understand like where that all comes from. So I definitely recommend that. I also really like Abdul Hakim Murad, who is also known as Tim Winter. He's a British guy. He runs the Cambridge Muslim College. He's very, very good. I would recommend pretty much anything that he's done. He has written things. He has stuff on YouTube you can look up, lots of lectures and stuff like that he's given. He has also put out a reading list, which is it's excellent. It's organized into tiers of like beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And it's just recommendations of books to read and stuff like that. So you can search that out. That's also good. I like Yasser Qadi. He's good on sort of like if you want some sense of like what a kind of like standard mainstream somewhat conservative kind of thing is that's fairly reasonable at the same time. It's not just like repeating dogma and stuff like that, but it's like a thought out sort of approach to that. He's very good. Also lots of things on YouTube you can find from him. And I would also say if you're interested in the Quran itself and specifically kind of like breaking down the Arabic meanings and all that kind of thing, I think that's useful. Especially if you're trying to read the Quran or something, you can find Numan Ali Khan, who runs the Bayina Institute. He does excellent stuff. A lot of his things can tend to be more focused on like younger people, like teens and stuff like that. So you just have to keep that in mind that, you know, it might feel a little hokey sometimes, some of the like the lessons that he's trying to derive from certain things. But then if you understand that, well, his audience is like a bunch of 16-year-olds, it makes a lot more sense. But the way he breaks down the Arabic and explains it is, I haven't found anything better than that. So yeah, I would recommend those things. And I'll put all that in the show notes for you so you can refer to that.
Sure. I've listened to the Hamza Yusuf ones, the two ones that you mentioned, and many years ago, and I found them really helpful. So, yeah.
All right, and so the last question here, is the reason Warren lost so bad because voters reject the idol worship of big structural Bailey? I would hope so. I think that that's sort of like a basic instinct that all human beings have, to reject idols and to direct their worship to the one true God. So I think there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think that I think it's also, just a good sign in general. Yeah, that her sort of witchcraft sort of stuff has been rejected, and her sort of astrology driven campaign. Maybe using mystic symbols like the 2 coins and stuff, and the giant dog and stuff. I think that it's showing that there's like a corner being turned where people will start deleting those astrology apps off their phone and stop talking about how they're witches and stuff, and we'll accept that someone like a Catholic like Biden can become president and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, the Islamo-Catholic emirate is slowly but surely creeping towards reality.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that'll wrap it up for this week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you want to hear a second episode of You Can't Win, you can subscribe to our Patreon, and you will also get access to our Discord, where you can chat with our community about fun things like the idea about creating a QAnon-style cult around George Soros, and the idea that he is fighting the pedophile elites rather than Trump. That's been something we've been batting around lately.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has some legs there. So, yeah, hope to see you there, and we'll catch you again next week. Thanks for listening.
Sanat kaikki talteen ottaa, maahan pudonneetkin nostaa. Laula sen pois, laulan nuo maisemat pois, ja kyynelemme talteen otan ne. Laula sen pois, laulan nuo maisemat pois, ja kyynelemme talteen otan ne. Kukapa meihin katsoisi, meitä poloisia kasvoihin, kun kaikki kulkee mustaa katu, siihen vanhaan majataloon.